Equitable and Just Climate Platform centers those communities that are most vulnerable to pollution and climate change and brings them into the conversation of policy solutions and decision making.
The Climate Equity Platform, for me, is the culmination of a struggle or fight that we've had with the environmental organizations for the last 30 years. We've come to the table as equal partners in trying to save the planet and at the same time protecting the most vulnerable.
What we find in low-income neighborhoods and communities of color in New Jersey is that a lot of times we have multiple sources of pollution. And we use the term cumulative impacts. Our laws and regulations don't deal with this total amount of pollution very well. One important type of policy that we think needs to be used to address this disproportionate amount of pollution is climate change mitigation policy. So if we do climate change mitigation policy in a business as usual way, which means not paying attention to environmental justice and equity up front, very good chance we're going to reproduce those inequalities or make things worse in the neighborhoods that have the most pollution now.
We know that greenhouse gases are one aspect of our fossil fuel economy, but there are other types of pollution as well that impair and affect the health of our communities. We need to pay attention to workers. We need to pay attention to fence line communities. We need to pay attention to those who have a lot to lose as we move into the transition.
This particular platform included clear statements about how people who have been devastated by storms and forced to leave their homes would be allowed to return and what that process would look like. I live in New Orleans, Louisiana. I was affected by Katrina. I lost everything, and so did every member of my family. I would just remember how painful it was going through the fight of being able to return home. It's probably one of the worst examples of destroying an indigenous community and watching it be overtaken by gentrification, people who don't understand the culture.
One of the outcomes in this platform that we are deeply wedded to is having safe and healthy communities for all. The communities we serve in the Environmental Justice Health Alliance live what we call fence line to many of our nation's most egregious operations. This cumulative impacts work addresses that overarching trauma, as we call it, that were placed on communities of color and the poor, and especially our Native Indigenous brothers and sisters. We feel that this will help move and advance that notion, again, of what Dr. King called the beloved community.
We are forcing everything to be examined through an equity lens. And I think that will help us to get closer to that more perfect union that we have been fighting for.
The hope for me today is that we are indeed together. We are trying, really trying, to address what we call environmental racism.